I have two big problems when it comes to video making and stuff like this. First, I have a terribly short attention span. I can be really into something for a while, and as soon as I get off track, it is incredibly hard for me to get back on track. Consequently, I don't always finish things. I don't always follow up on things that I should. Second is, I don't know as much as I ought to, and as much as I like to, and that's part of the reason why I do what I do here on YouTube, why I talk about what I talk about on my channel, because these things interest me, and I'm giving you my understanding, what I know about it, what I think about it, and I want other people to come in and correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes I am and sometimes I'm not. This video is about basically both of those things. Howdy YouTube, this is your friendly neighborhood DFH. So this is the second response to Dr. Dennis-Polis, dfpolis here on YouTube, regarding the laws of nature and proof for the existence of God. This video is kind of overdue. I've been promising him a response for a while now, and I still don't think that I'm ready to make this response. There's still some things that I need to research, still some things I need to understand, but if I don't make it now, chances are I never will. So I would rather put in what I can now. The first thing I would like to mention is the fact that in his response to me, titled R7 Natural Laws and God, Dr. Polis said that Daniel is courteous, honest, and rational. And I appreciate that, because I try to be. I am not always courteous. I am not always honest. I am not always rational. I am a human being after all. But I try to be. And I try to, especially to be that in YouTube videos, because I'm interested in a conversation with other people. And the kind of people that I subscribe to and that I watch on YouTube most are also courteous, honest, rational people, whether I agree with them or not. I think it's interesting to have a discussion with those sorts of people rather than people that are not particularly courteous, honest, or rational. And I am subscribed to Dennis, and I do certainly think that he is all three of those things and more. In fact, he is also a lot more knowledgeable than I am. And I've learned quite a bit in this discussion so far. Okay, so let me jump to a review of what we were talking about. There were three basic points that I wanted to respond to Dennis's videos on natural laws. The first one, Dennis makes the claim that natural laws are not properties of the universe themselves, that they are separate immaterial entities that pre-exist the universe. The second is that natural laws show intentionality, unlike anything else in the universe other than, for example, human conscious thought also shows intentionality. And the third point that he made that I was disputing was the fact that it is the persistence and the constancy and the conservation of these natural laws that essentially proves that God exists. Now, in my first video, I gave arguments for why I felt that those were wrong, and he came back in his response video and basically took apart my arguments. And I will agree with him that I got a lot of things wrong. But even granting that, I still think fundamentally my points are right, and I'm going to do my best to continue to support those, even though, like I said, I still feel that I'm not quite ready and quite able to do that yet, but I will give it what I've got. Okay, regarding the first point, Dennis's original position in his videos was that natural laws are not like the properties of things that we find normally. And I had tried to draw an analogy with electric charge as a binary property, a property that you either have or you don't, that doesn't come in differing amounts. And of course, Dennis pointed out that yes, electric charge does come in differing amounts. So it was a bad example, and it was a bad point, I guess. But I think the fact that the laws of nature don't behave like certain other kind of properties isn't really such a problem, because there are different kinds of properties. There are properties of a thing can have, which are inherent in the thing. For example, a thing could have color, it could have length, it could have weight or mass, and that is a property inherent in a thing. And then there are properties which are not inherent in things, but which are inherent in relationships between things, such as position. The notebook is on the table. That isn't a property of the notebook or a property of the table. It is a property of the relationship between them. So the fact that natural laws, to me, seem to be properties of the interactions between matter. They aren't necessarily properties of the parts of matter themselves. And I think originally the points that I were making kind of made it sound like that was what I was saying, that the laws of nature are contained in the properties of individual things, like electrons, like protons, like lumps of matter. And that's certainly not the way to go. I don't think that's the case. I think it is more correct to say that these are properties of the universe itself, such that interactions that take place within the universe can only happen in these certain ways because these are the properties of the universe. Now that actually brings me to a really huge point that Dennis made. He said that the laws of nature inhere to the, or excuse me, he says that properties inhere to the objects that possess them, but laws of nature do not. They are ontologically prior to the universe. And he says that physicists such as Victor Stenger and Stephen Hawking agree with that position, that they believe that the laws were before the universe, and it was through these laws that the universe was created. Now I think that is a really, really important point, because if that were the case, if the laws existed before the universe, then I am just completely, absolutely wrong. And I recognize that. And if it's true that the consensus view in physics is that the laws existed before the universe, and through them the universe was brought about, then I might as well say right now that I'm completely wrong. But that is not my understanding. This is one of the things that I said that I need to do more research. What I would like to have is I would like to have taken the books that these people have read, Stenger and Hawking, and show quotes of them supporting my case, but I don't have those resources available to me now. But this is my understanding. I believe that Dennis is incorrect, that the laws came first and the universe was produced from them. I think it is more correct that the positions of these physicists and others are that there was an initial state of the universe, and that the laws were part of this initial state, and that the universe progressed from the initial state, came out of the initial state through the laws. But it's not that the universe didn't exist at that initial state. It just didn't exist in its present form in the initial state. The laws are how it grew from the initial state to successive states to the state of the universe as it is now. If I am correct about that, then obviously Dr. Polis is wrong. And so what I really need is some kind of confirmation that this is what these physicists are talking about. But if it is actually the case that this is the view of physics, that laws existed before the universe, then immediately I can see that I'm wrong. But if Dennis or anyone else watching this video wants to check on that stuff for me to see if my understanding of that is correct or not, that would be appreciated. Okay. Next, he goes on and says that even if we don't agree that the laws can create the universe, that laws are still prior to matter because they are an explanation of matter and its properties. And I guess if I understand the reasoning here, the idea is an explanation for something, like the cause of something, is necessarily prior to the thing that it is explaining. But to say that the laws of nature are explanations for why matter behaves like it does, I think is kind of backwards. The reason why we believe that there are laws of nature is because we observe matter. We observe the fact that there are certain regularities in matter, that certain things will behave in similar ways in similar circumstances. So I don't see that as logically prior to matter behaving in those ways. Matter behaves in those ways because we have the laws, or because the laws are what they are. I don't think that there is so much this separation between the laws of nature and the matter. And let me see if I can explain that a bit. Matter itself has no meaning outside of the universe, and the properties of matter have no meaning outside of their interaction with other matter, according to natural law. For example, if I take a lump of matter, let's say a baseball, and feel that it has weight in my hand, it has mass, what does it mean to have mass? Well, that doesn't have any meaning outside of the fact that I'm describing an interaction. When I lift the baseball and I feel it, that is an interaction between the baseball and the earth, the gravity pulling down on it due to the baseball's mass, or even if not in that case, pushing a baseball along a flat plane, the fact that the baseball resists moving with inertial mass. So these properties of matter and matter itself, they don't mean anything outside of the interactions. The interactions kind of define them, but the interactions don't have meaning minus the matter. So I don't think that it is a case of laws and then the material which is the subject of the laws. The laws are simply regularities in how the matter behaves. So they seem to me to coexist, to be simultaneous, not separate sort of things. The universe is such that interactions within it can only take place in certain ways. If you ask why is the law of conservation of momentum or the law of conservation of energy, why are they the case? Because the universe is such that any interactions that take place between pieces of matter are such that only momentum conserving interactions are possible. It's not a law in addition to the universe. It is part of the universe and the way that the universe is. And that leads me to the second place where I got something completely wrong, and Dennis pointed that out, and that was with Nether's theorem. Now, I had originally learned of this a long time ago, and what I had read about it was that conservation of momentum was due to symmetries in space, and that conservation of energy was due to symmetries in time, the time component of the four-dimensional momentum vector. Now, I had read this a long time ago, and apparently my memory is faulty. Apparently I was mistaken. When I did the little bit of research that I did on the internet about Nether's theorem before I made my last video, what I read there seemed to confirm what I was thinking, but not exactly. There was still a lot of stuff that I didn't understand. And But of course, Dr. Polis is right in the fact that space is not symmetric like I was saying that it was. Of course, in general relativity, the idea that mass warps space introduces curvature, and once you have curvature in space, then this piece of space acts differently from this piece of space, which is why we feel a gravitational tug here. We don't feel it there. And that just makes sense. So I was obviously wrong in the way that I applied it. And he actually made a good point. I don't think it was in his video. I think it was in a comment, but I haven't looked it up. Basically where he says that the symmetries that Nether's theorem is talking about is the symmetries in something called the Lagrangian, which I'm not 100% sure about. It has to do with the kinetic energy and the potential energy at any particular point in a process. But the idea that the point that I was trying to make was the symmetries were causing the conservation law, and what he was saying was that that was not correct. That the symmetries are simply the symmetries and the conservation laws are simply like two sides of the same coin. They're both reflective of the state of the way it is. Of course you have these symmetries because you have the conservation laws, and of course you have the conservation laws because you have these symmetries going on. So there isn't like the causal aspect that I was trying to bring out. So I was actually wrong about that. Okay, moving on to the second point of contention in my original video about intention. Dr. Polis in his last video said that intention is about action beyond itself, about future actions, about looking toward the future and concerning that. But again, that makes sense if you think of the laws of nature as something that aren't inherently part of the universe, if they are something that pre-existed, that the universe is kind of beholden to, then I guess the intention makes sense because it's about stuff happening in the universe even though they're not part of the universe. But again, if you look at the laws of nature the way I do, that they are part of the universe, that they are properties of the universe itself, which define what kind of interactions can take place, what kind of interactions can't take place, how the interactions within the universe take place, then all trace of intention disappears. It isn't about future actions. It isn't beyond itself. It is about the here and now. It is about interactions which take place in the universe. So that point, again, really hinges on the first point that I made. So this one is not, the second point here is not quite as important. If he's right about the first point, then I will naturally grant the second point. But if I'm right about the first point, then I guess it follows that I'm also right about the second point too. And that leads us to the third point of contention, the role of natural laws in proving the existence of God. Dennis points out in his last video that that I essentially accuse him of using a God of the gaps argument, that I'm using God as a hypothesis to fill in, to correct a problem with reasoning gone awry, was the term that I used. And again, he's right. I was wrong about that. He says that God is not used as a hypothesis in his original videos, that it is the end result of a deduction. The fact that the deduction showed that there has to be something which keeps the laws constant, and that which keeps the laws of nature constant is, by definition, God, was his point. And this is where I think he's incorrect here, even though my reasoning for it was wrong in my last video. To say that this thing that this conclusion that he came up with deductively is God by definition really doesn't fit. It is true that the role of God traditionally is that of creator, that of sustainer, that of ruler of the universe, and these would seem to be the roles played by what he concluded in his deductive argument. But God is more than that. God is an intelligent personal being. God represents perfect morality and benevolence. God has wants and desires, and he's got a plan for your life, and he has things he wants done, and he performs actions in the world. All of this is also God. So to say that you can take part of the idea in God, like a role that needs to be filled, and go, oh, well, that role is by definition part of the role of God, therefore that's God in that position, I don't think you can conclude that. For example, originally, before Darwin came along, and before we had the modern theory of evolution, it was believed that the animals and the humans were all created spontaneously in a day by God. Since then we know that animals and people have evolved over time. So even though the role of God traditionally is the creator of man and animals, if we have a scientific process that is the true creator of man and animals, and I'm not talking about the creation of life, but necessarily the origin of the modern animal species and the origin of the human species, if that role is filled by a natural process, is it fair to say that, well, that role is by definition part of what God is, therefore God? See, it's that sort of reasoning, and I think that's false. If there is, as he contends, something which must keep the laws of nature constant, and that the universe was created through the laws by this, whatever this is, to say that it's God is too much of a leap, unless you can show that it has all of the other attributes of God as well. It could be a non-intelligent thing. It could be a non-benevolent thing. It could be whatever else. So I don't think that you can jump from persistence of matter and constancy of the laws of nature immediately to God. I think he made too huge of a jump there. Another error that I think Dennis makes, in my last video I attempted to account for the constancy of nature by saying that if they were properties of the universe, then it requires nothing more than the assumption that a thing is itself. That as long as the thing is itself and not something else, then it will keep its properties, if the natural laws are properties of the universe. And he countered that with an argument about himself. He said that when he was a younger man, of course, he had a full head of hair. That was a property of his, but now he doesn't have that property, and yet he is still himself. So that even if the laws of nature were properties of the universe at one particular time, it doesn't necessarily mean that they remain constant. Now, I think he made a mistake here, because I know he knows the difference between accidental properties and essential properties. What I mean by an accidental property is it's a property of a thing can have, but doesn't necessarily have to be that thing. For example, a ball could be red or it could be blue. The color of the ball is an accidental property. What makes the ball a ball is the fact that it's round. American footballs notwithstanding. A ball is something that is round. Its roundness being an essential property. If it is no longer round, then it is no longer a ball. And that is what I was meaning by the laws of nature as properties of the universe remaining constant, because they would be essential properties of the universe. They are what makes the universe the universe. They are what makes matter matter. Again, because matter has no meaning outside of the universe. The properties of matter have no meaning outside of the laws. They are an integral part. To say that the laws could change would mean that matter is no longer matter, that the universe is no longer the universe. And that is what keeps it constant. It doesn't need an additional thing. So his argument here about confusing an accidental property with an essential property, I think, is a mistake that he probably shouldn't have made. But we all make mistakes. Hey. Finally, in his response video, Dennis says that I need to explain why some phenomena need to be explained in terms of laws and some don't. If we make an exception to the rules of science to please atheists, then where does it stop? And again, I'm not 100% sure that I understand what he's talking about here, but what I guess is what he's talking about is the fact of, again, the constancy of the laws of nature. If I don't rely on laws holding that the laws are constant, if I don't rely on something holding it, then aren't I making an exception to the rules of science just to please atheism? And I don't think I am at all. First of all, because if I'm correct in accounting for the constancy of the laws of nature as the fact that they are essential properties in the universe and therefore they don't change as long as the universe is the universe, then I'm not making an exception. Second of all, because let's say I'm wrong about that, and let's say it does take something external to the universe to keep all that constant. Again, why does that thing necessarily have to be God? Certainly that is the role that theists and believers feel that God fulfills. I mean, that is one way to define God, but again, that isn't all that God is. They would need to show that that thing also has all the other properties that they claim it to have, and then I would agree that it would be God. But until they do that, just saying there has to be something there does not make the logical step that therefore it is God. So to sum up, and I apologize for the rambly, almost incoherent nature of my video. I've got like pages of notes here that you probably can't see them because the light is shining too hard. But I've got pages of notes here that I've been working off of. Dennis is right. I do get a lot of stuff wrong. And if there's one thing you know of, if you've watched any of my videos, it's that I am terrible at explaining things. I seem to take 2 minutes worth of explanation and information, and I expand it into 10 minutes worth of ums and ahs and so forth. I'm really bad at it. But I do it because it interests me and I believe it's important. And like I said, I need to expose my ideas to criticism. I could completely, ignore everyone else. I could hold on to my own ideas and I could just sit here and be confident in how right I am and how well I've done in figuring out everything. But that's false. That's self-delusion. Only by exposing my ideas to other people, to the criticism of other people, and to the praise of other people, in certain cases when I get something that I think is right and other people agree with me, only by that can I better judge whether or not I'm right. And that's why I do this. And I've learned a lot. And no matter how much you know, it doesn't guarantee that you're right. And no matter how little you know, it doesn't guarantee that you're wrong. Ideas need to be discussed and dissected, and evidence given, and back and forth needs to be there. And that's why I do this. And I hope that Dr. Polis is enjoying this as much as I am. And I want to give a thanks to him for putting up with this as much as he has. And thanks to everyone else out there who finds what I do interesting, or at the very least amusing. Thanks.